You're listening to Carlow Connects, a local business podcast keeping us all connected. Available now on all major podcasting platforms. Welcome back to Carlow Connects. I'm Paddy Carl. You know the drill by now. But if you're new to this podcast, each week I meet with someone that's driving things forward, and this episode is no different. So let's jump into Carlow Connects. My next guest spent 20 years as a journalist and still as a journalist, asking other people hard questions, then decided the real challenge was answering to nobody but herself. For over a decade, she was the voice of morning radio on KCLR, covering Carlow and Kilkenny. If the voice doesn't give her away, the face might. You'll have spotted her on Virgin Media's Ireland AM as one of the country's go-to media commentators. She's also writing bestsellers, does business through her beautiful Irish language. This lady is a PR consultant, media trainer, radio presenter, TV commentator, author, and ambassador for us Carlovians and Scallianators all over Ireland and beyond. A Carlow woman through and through. Eimear Ní Bhraonáin, thank you so much for coming into us here at Carlow Connects and Ampifi Studios. And I have to give this little bit of Irish here before I start. So, Fáilte Road, Eimear, quick. Ampifi Studios. Did I do okay there?
Mahu, Paddy, ma far, untucker fod, and calling velat.
I wasn't, after that day, I wasn't in for the Irish classes, all right?
I'd say it wouldn't be a bother to you. Look, you could turn your hand to anything. You're fairly adept at PR listening to that intro. Maybe I should hire you to be on the PR team for Eimear.ie.
I think that's as far as I go now, you know it is. But how are you finding the PR stuff?
Interesting. Definitely interesting. You see, the PR service I provide is quite limited. So people ask me all the time, Eimear, will you do PR for my business? And I might disappoint them because generally I can't. Because the PR side of it, because it's just me at the moment, and that's the way I've structured the business, I subsidise some of my passion projects, some of my media work, because the industry is so challenged. So therefore, PR-wise, I can only do so much. So I've picked organisations that align with, for instance, the Irish language or things that I'm very invested in. If there's a sense of place, purpose for me, if it's linked to where I'm from or somehow linked to culture, I'm interested.
Yeah, and is that PR communication piece, is it more about getting the message of that business out or that individual, do you think, or is it more to that?
There's definitely more to it. So it depends the kind of PR you're doing. So it's a massive term, like it's an umbrella term. So communications, you're trying to make sure maybe at times that people know what you're about, people know about the good work you're doing. So sometimes organisations have challenges. There's a lot of myths, for instance, about homelessness, that people have a certain perception, that they think, that people are only maybe, they're getting houses for nothing, or they have, that we can be guilty of putting people in boxes. And we don't realise that actually, take a step back from that. If something changed in your family circumstances, how many steps away from, if you miss maybe 3 pay packets, would you find yourself in a really precarious situation? Or if some contracts in business didn't come through for us, things can change really fast. So the only thing I try to do is keep an open mind. Keep an open mind with people, and the same with the organisations. And if I believe in the organisation or in the work they're doing, if there's a greater good there, well, isn't it nice to be able to tell the stories of how people actually come through sometimes addiction and homelessness? It's not always the case. I also like the nuance. The journey's not linear. I don't like when things are black and white. I love when we're delving into those areas where it's a little bit complicated. We'll have ups and downs, and we don't have to pretend everything's rosy in the garden. PR for me is not about that. It's about putting a truth out there that people actually think, right, I relate to that. And
with that, and as we all know, bad news travels a lot faster for some reason. And with this podcast, it's about the positivity. So you're probably looking for that positive spin. And I don't like to call it a spin, but you like to look for that positive story that people can relate to. and go, hold on here, I'm flicking through my Instagram or through TikTok or whatever, and you've gone, look, oh, hold on here now. Eimear has done something. Oh, maybe people don't even know that you've been actually advising this person or company.
I think sometimes organisations and businesses bury the good news. They actually don't
Right,
know,
okay.
and they can be very modest, and sometimes they can't see the wood for the trees because they're so busy doing and looking around, and often they think like, we need some big announcement, you need a piece of news really if you're going to issue a press release.
Right,
you don't want
okay.
it just to be spin. But if you look around the organisation, and if you even look at people's social media feeds, what works, what doesn't work, the stuff that I think we gravitate towards, it's back to the basics.
Okay.
Can you tell me a story? And when the hook is on a human interest, like if Paddy told me his story about building Carroll estimating from scratch, I'd be very interested.
Yes.
I'd be very interested in knowing your personal story, who you married. Like, we love all that. So it's just back to being human.
Do you think the pure rawness, that's what people like to see? Do you know that if it's a local person doing, we'll just say 2 local people here doing a podcast, there's probably an interest here now in Carlow people having a look at this, and they're going, oh, what's she at now? Or what's he at there now? So you're trying to say that, come on, spit it out there. Let us all hear what your thoughts are. Where does it all start? Why
Show
are you
us a
doing it?
little bit of yourself and what drives you and all of that. It's very hard to be vulnerable. These days, everything is the best side out. And the opposite is actually working. We know that now, that when people give us a little bit of the real, like how difficult it can be at times. I know we want to be positive, but all the challenges that you have in your own head, even when you're in business, when you're thinking, I find an awful lot of women I work with, when it comes to trying to help them maybe before they have an interview with the media, imposter syndrome is massive with women.
What am I doing here?
Yeah, like right before the red light comes on, you want to just leg it out the door. And that thought does cross your mind.
No, and absolutely it does, yeah. Look, I believe that, when you get those butterflies in your stomach, I for some reason, some people love that, and I'm one of those people. It's like going out to play a championship match, and you're like, oh my God, if we don't perform here today, we're not going to win, or whatever it is.
You like that feeling?
Oh, I love that feeling. And it was the same for exams. When I went to the exams, even if I didn't study at that time for exams, I just had that feeling. Do you know what it is?
You love the adrenaline and the rush.
What will be. And I think that, the prim, the proper, what we look like on screen or what we sound like, we can't be perfect.
We can't, and we don't want to be.
No.
I don't think anybody would believe in us or relate to us if we're too polished. But that feeling you're describing now, I'm the opposite.
Okay.
I get that feeling and I think, oh no, here we go.
Right, okay.
And somehow it's the, the book, I've spoken about this before, Susan Jeffers is the name of the author.
Right.
Nobody has read the book, but we all know the title, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So I feel sick. On stage, say, Carlow Business Awards, not just the first year, I'm not sure how many years, maybe 6 or 7 years maybe I presented them. I would feel like right before you go on, absolutely feel nauseous at the thoughts
and
of,
is that the
and it's the
imposter
respect
syndrome?
for the audience as well. What if I get somebody's name wrong? Am I sure I know? Is this going to run well? The thing's out of my control. Alan will tell you, my poor long-suffering husband, I love to be in control of things, but there's certain things you just have to let go. So say Greg from Hedgehog Productions, great man, he looks after me when we were doing the awards and the sound. There's other things. So all you can do is your best with whatever you're doing. Put yourself out there and what's within your control. And other than that, let it go. But I think I tend to kind of worry about the moving parts.
And is there something that you, just before that red light comes on, is there something that you go, cop onto yourself, Eimear. You're well capable of doing it.
I have long-running discussions. I call them the numbskulls. If anyone reads Beano, the numbskulls are always busy, and I just say to them, listen, lads, not tonight. We're going to get through this. This is all going to be fine. And that mantra, really believe in that, talking to yourself, even if you don't fully believe it, say it to yourself before you go on. I've done this before. I'm able to do this. I'm in good hands tonight. The hair is done. It's not on this podcast, by the way, but I mean, everything's fine. We're all great and everything's going to be grand. I think, look, no harm. And there's little tricks, there's physical things to bring you back into the room, which I find fascinating. If you watch speakers closely, people like former US President Bill Clinton, little things they do, like they press into their hand.
Okay, so
And
little
they
old
reset the
subtle little
nervous
thing.
system. Yeah. There could be a little pinch or something that helps you. Now, if you watch the rugby players, so I'm funny, like over the years, I always, when I was younger, say following, for instance, the Premiership, because my sister was a massive Man United fan and I just wanted to be an ABU because she was a Man U fan.
Well, do you know what it is? Welcome to the club. ABU all the way.
That's it.
That's it. Manchester United supporters are gone off this
They're
podcast.
gone off the podcast, banned. Don't worry, I won't give you a bashing anymore now. But I would watch things, say instead of watching the football, she was watching the goals. I was watching how often the advertising signs were changing.
Okay.
I was fascinated. How many advertisers, how much revenue could they get from that? Even the seconds of it turning. It's thinking back now, it makes sense. I was always fascinated by signage, by media, by all those different kind of aspects of it.
But that comes then to showing up.
Yeah.
Right? And I was looking at some of your posts there. I wasn't stalking now, but I was looking at your LinkedIn page over the last while. And there was one thing that came up about people being, you might see them quite a lot on TV or you might hear them on radio and people are going, Jesus, here she comes or here he comes again. But why do you think that is? Why is that same person coming up?
So the media have something, I always called it friends of the show. So I'd have a friends of the show list because practicalities come into it.
Right.
So people think sometimes there's this big secret that you'll only ring such and such a politician because you're great friends with them, or you'll only ring, you know, the Carlow weatherman because of X, Y or Z. The thing is, the people that you lean on, they have to know their stuff, right? That's a given. But often the person you end up with, they might not be the number one expert in the area, but what they are is sound. They'll answer their phone, they'll be available, they're able to kind of take the call, they're relatable. There are practical reasons why the media often ends up focusing. And those opportunities then can emerge for somebody one day. So say if you're a financial advisor, and that's a fairly crowded space, you know, there's lots of very well-known, high-profile financial advisors out there in Ireland today. So if a very good radio show, for instance, if Pat Kenny on the weekend suddenly had a slot because his regular go-to wasn't available and contacted a financial advisor, say the producer, how it works, maybe the producer tells the researcher, hey, see, can you get somebody for that slot? And say they ring somebody in Kilkenny and that person doesn't answer the phone. Well, if they had have answered the phone that day, they would have got that slot. Now, they could ring them back a half an hour later, that slot will be filled. So the media is strange in that everything's immediate. They're always in a hurry, always, and they always just want an answer now. So that's very difficult for people that we'd say work differently. They take their time. They want to know, what are you going to ask me? All those things are very reasonable, but say yes to the opportunity and figure that out afterwards. We do the prep afterwards.
Yeah, it's like the Richard Branson say, you know, just say yes and then go learn.
Go and figure it out. You can ring back the researcher. You can kind of shake them down maybe for some info afterwards. And I got sidetracked with the football analogy. I was going to tell you, if you observe the footballers, apart from the signs, the other thing I noticed when they took free kicks or, you know, crunch time penalties, and the same with the rugby, you watch the top players and the breaths they take for the reset. That's all to do with the nerves. So before you perform, before you speak
heart
in
rate
public,
down.
that's it. Just try. I probably should have did it before I came in here. I would be talking a bit more slowly. But
that's the
breaths.
Carlow girl in you, though, isn't it? We talk very fast in this
We do,
countryside.
we do.
Actually, when you say that, and just started the podcast, right? And already people are saying to me, "You're very fidgety, Paddy." So I've a knack to go. My eyes roll. I've sometimes looked down, but sometimes I'm very handsy. So is there any old tips there
It's very, I think, I talk with my hands.
Yeah.
So as a child, I remember my parents saying to me, if they held my hands, would it slow me down with the talking? Because I find it very hard to talk if I can't use the hands. So if I was advising you, I'd say don't tone it down, because sometimes the thing that might annoy people about you is actually something that
It's quirky
makes
or
you
something.
very
Right.
unique
Right.
and makes you paddy. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't try and knock it out of you unless you were hitting off the mic every second, as I did earlier. Sorry to the tech team. But I would say, no, don't tone yourself down. Don't tone down your accent. And years ago, I think we all thought that you had to have some kind of a fancy Dublin 4 accent to be on the national airwaves. All the research shows actually audiences are gravitating towards people that have real accents, their own accents, wherever they're from.
And actually,
That it's not forced.
Do you know what it is? You're the first person to talk about accents. So, has anyone ever said anything to you about the Carlow accent?
People think I'm from Carlow, Wexford, Waterford, somewhere in the Midlands. See, I suppose I've travelled the country with the news doing stories. I've lived in Athlone, I've lived in Kilkenny, I've lived in Carlow. So I've been around the southeast and the Midlands, and maybe I've picked up little twangs here and there. Some people know I'm from Carlow from the accent.
We do
but
have a twang though.
kind of
don't
a hybrid accent.
we do have a kind of a bland accent though. People always say that. I don't know whether it's a boring accent or it's I don't know, are we, Carlow lad? Do you know?
I think we have our own dialect. We have our own vocabulary, don't we? Especially in school. I remember, God bless Mary Doyle, a lot of people had to go to Mary Doyle on the Black Bog Road for speech and drama.
Okay, very good.
So I should say thanks to Mary, because maybe I picked up something from her, because she talked a lot about projection, and she'd
Okay.
make you stand up and read a poem. And my mum was very concerned about my Carlow accent. Queer this and queer that. And, when you're a child in school, we had our own lingo.
It's queer bad lad.
That's it. Maybe it's been knocked out of me to some extent.
I was when you're driving back from Kilkenny and you come in, and I don't know whether it's still there or not, and there's a sign, Carlow 31 kilometres, and it's underneath it is Carlow lad.
Lad. Yep.
It's absolutely brilliant. And Eimear, I thought that you were a culture like myself, but no, you're a born and bred townie, right from the very heart here of Carlow town. Where did it all begin?
Absolutely. So for the first 7 years of my life, I grew up in Springfield Drive, 22 Springfield Drive in Rathnapish. So my mum would walk across the plots to the back of the Gael Skull there in the 1980s. And I think I was so small when I started school, I was bowled. So I got out to school early, and I actually was collected in a buggy. So that'll tell you now. So I was very short. I haven't grown much since then.
Good things come in small packages.
But from there then, we moved up the Burn to where my grandparents lived, and where lots of Brennans, all our relations, our cousins, where my father is from. So it's known as, to people that have been there many years, Paupish.
Oh, yeah.
Nowadays, the Burn Road, right? It's very built up now. We're part of the town. But back then, you'd walk up the little windy road. It was a country lane. It was like a boreen. You'd go by Gollypots, we called the Bad Bend there at Little Barrack Street. And you'd go up the windy road. You'd see Kelly's farm, and you'd see the river would flood that field where there are houses built now. And then there was maybe 11 houses on the road. And at the end of the road, my grandparents, Jack and Betty Brennan, lived in Millview. Paupish was their address. So 5 to 10 minutes and you're in the centre, as in Dublin Street, Tullow Street here. Within 10 minutes you'd be here. So it was a great place to grow up, because it felt like we were rural. It felt like we were in the thick of the country. We could be out picking blackberries, but yet all our friends as we grew up could come to our house, because we were the closest stop to the foundry on the way home. If anybody wanted, we'd have the pizza under the arm and they'd be coming up to our house afterwards, and our parents were very good with that. So we were kind of a go-to destination with some of our friends.
Isn't it amazing how times have changed though, with all of the social media, and how the next generation are being brought up through phones and, the quick flicking, where it was, I don't know, it was far more simpler, wasn't it?
It was, especially even things like bikes, and we're trying to get people back on bikes now, and we won't mention the bike lanes in case anyone in the council is watching or listening.
They're actually in here as well, so
Okay.
Brian and Ben.
That's it. So we need to encourage people to cycle and all that. But I was thinking lately, I used to cycle an odd time, like down to Brennan's Butchers to get chops for the dinner for my mother and cycle home, because it was a few minutes down the Burn Road and you'd zip to Brennan's. So nowadays there's just so much traffic on the road and there's big SUVs and you're afraid your child's going to be in someone's blind spot. And
100%.
little Johnny, like, we do wrap up our children, and I'm very guilty of this, in cotton wool, because the world has changed. The world is a different place, and the simple stuff is still great though, isn't it? Like those parties we had in the 90s when it was someone's communion and there was no fancy entertainment. It was the backyard. And maybe somebody would take out a bowron or a tin whistle, and if you were really blessed, you might have a keg. But that was the height of it.
No, and that was it. And you know, go to the shop and for 20p,
box of crisps.
You know, what stuff you get for 20p or 50p that time, you know, was just completely different. So when you finished college, you went to a couple of papers.
Yep.
Was that right? And you worked there for a couple of years. So how was communicating and doing stories that time to what it is now? Like, was it easier to get people to talk? Was it harder? Were you constantly trying to get that big story and get it onto the paper?
It's actually never changed, the basics.
Right.
Now, there's loads of little distractions these days. But still, the best pieces of journalism and the best stories come from somebody having to knock a door or ring somebody and ask them, will you meet me and talk to me about that?
Okay.
And you know, people overcomplicate it and look at it every which way, and we need clips of this and we need social media that. But at the end of the day, the foundations have to be good. You need to have an interesting person to talk to, and maybe that they will reveal something to you. So I think I got a great lesson in the early days doing work experience in the Carlow Nationalist. Before I even went to college, Eddie Coffey was the editor there.
Okay.
And I remember Eddie saying to me, now he didn't know me, I was only in the door. I wandered in and I asked, could I do work experience? And in fairness, he said, right, talk to me or whatever. And I ended up going in to the newsroom, and I subsequently got a job in the advertising department, because the story of my life, the news doesn't pay. So I ended up upstairs selling ads to get the paid work.
Absolutely.
And then on my lunch hour, or maybe I'd pitch stories in my spare time to Eddie. I really wanted to be in the newsroom, but obviously at that stage I wasn't a professional journalist. I was looking for the experience. And at the time, you know what the big story was? I could actually get you afterwards and send you the page, which I still have.
Brilliant.
It was a debate on the pedestrianisation, I think, of Tullow Street, and whether there was any life in the town centre. It was kind of along these lines.
Wow. So
we still
what
have the
year was
same
that?
debates
What year
nearly
was that?
today. I could have been around 2000 maybe.
So that story still resonates today.
Or 2001, still resonates. When I look back, that's why I say nothing really changes. So went in there, did the work experience. But Eddie's lesson to me was, listen, if you're going out, and I was, and stopping people on Tullow Street and asking them about their views on the town centre, what's the town like now? You know, writing this into my notebook and going back and writing it up. And we'd have a photographer, Michael O'Rourke actually was still on the scene and was a great wingman back then. But Eddie said, like, we need to be able to trust you. So and this was the only thing he said, now, make sure you don't let us down. You know,
So
words
the
to that
nationalists
effect,
were
kind
saying
of.
that to you.
Well, like, the editor was great because he
Right.
gave me a bit of advice about, be careful how you go about this, because you're representing the paper, the brand. So I didn't know anything really about media back then, and that stuck with me. And I thought, okay, don't say anything that I wouldn't say in the middle of the street, maybe on a box, standing up in front of everybody in the square. So be prepared to stand over what I say. That speaks to your credibility as well. So in media, you want to just watch that and be mindful of that, and that you're representing whoever you're working for.
But you have to have I think you've said this before, that journalist has to have an interest though. Don't
Oh
they?
yeah, I was really interested in the changes in the town, and that all came from Pawpish, the changes in the town and the development of the town and the fairgreen being built and people having questions about the road being built. And that's journalism, for me, was getting people in power to answer questions because little people needed to know what was going on. So that's kind of one of the core, I suppose, principles of journalism. Find stuff out as well.
It's like the David versus Goliath, isn't it? You know, you're trying to, what's happening over here? Why is this happening? Or how can we know nothing about this? This should be on front page news, or if we just go back to Carlow local news, if it wasn't on the Nashes, how are people to know about this?
How would we know? We'd have to figuring it out and keeping an eye on the planning notices, all those things. So actually, when I finished college, while I was in college, I did lots of different work experiences, and including I did an internship with Today FM. So I was a runner on The Last Word for Matt Cooper. I think that was early days for him in the show because it's that long ago. Today FM wasn't where it is now. It was on Abbey Street, so near where people would know where the Lewis stop. There might still be an old sign there, but it was in a big old Georgian building on the top floor in the newsroom, and there was a brilliant editor up there who's now the editor of Morning Ireland and RTE. Just goes to show it's a little small circuit.
And at that stage, when you say you're a run around, is that a researcher?
No, so a runner literally runs. So you would run to the front door, you would bring in the guest, and they would come in, say, at 4 o'clock, and they might be on the radio at 2 minutes past, for instance, or 5 o'clock, and they might be on straight after news. So you have to run with them to wherever you're going, maybe get them a glass of water, suss them out, talk to them, and maybe you pass that information on to the researcher because it could be something in there that would help the presenter. And then I was scanning the text messages back then. I was printing them out because the system was different. Maybe there wasn't as much stuff on screen. So I did an internship there while I was in DCU. And I can't remember, maybe that was for something like 8 weeks or 10 weeks, but it was a brilliant experience. And the editor was Kathy Farrell, and she gave me so many opportunities in the newsroom. Sorry, I did runner on The Last Word. Maybe that was after my 8-week stint in the newsroom. I'm getting the two confused. But did the work experience in the newsroom and got to interview celebrities, got to go to big concerts that there was maybe charity concert Bono was involved with, all sorts of things happening. And again, with the microphone or with the brand to record clips. So very mindful all the time. Big responsibility. You want to do a good job.
But you're constantly and consistently learning. And I just say about the likes of Matt Cooper, I presume you picked up stuff with him, the way he presented his presenting style, and Pat Kenny and all these people that. But that then led you from the paper onto local radio here.
Yeah, so I did the work experience, say, in Today FM, and then straight after college, while I was still in college, my final year project was on the closure. I decided to look at the closure of the sugar factory in Carlow because I knew it was going to be a massive loss to the town. And I wanted to document it because I felt like, who will be there to see the workers clock out for the last time? Will we have that information somewhere just to have a recording of it? So for my final year project, I started to specialise in radio in college, even though I had done a lot with the newspapers up to that point. And I was even freelancing, sending in pieces to the Sunday World that were published and elsewhere, feature writing, all of that. But I kind of loved how personal the medium of radio was because you could hear other people's voices and I could give them a platform, to hear the tone and to hear the emotion. And you don't get that obviously with the newspaper, even though I found the newspaper medium really exciting as well, like really interested in it.
And in all that time, you're connecting with people from different backgrounds and all that. So from your work experience with the Nashes at a very young age to going on, as a runner, to working with papers, with doing stories as an independent journalist and all that, how was connecting with people important to get into that radio?
Everything, because again, I was saying the brand has to trust you. People have to trust you to tell their story. Deeply personal things. You're with people at their lowest point and you're with them maybe at their highest point. So you go through a massive range of emotions with them. The hardest job I did was when I worked for the Irish Independent. So first job out of college, actually, full-time job, I came back to Carlow and I worked in KCLR as a news journalist for about 2 years almost. left that because I met a man in a pub actually who said, I'll double your wages.
Happy days.
On I went. And it was a real Celtic Tiger story. I edited local newspapers for him. Now, they didn't last, but it was a fantastic experience. And after working for him, I was kind of like a wild card selection. There was a job going as Midlands correspondent of the Irish Independent, and there was a few people in for the job, but I ended up getting it. And I had a news editor there, Shane Dorn. He's in the Mail now. Eddie Coffey's in the Mail as well, so shout out to the Mail. But Shane was a great mentor. He was young at the time as well. We had a young team, but it was a tough job because in the Midlands I was covering a big area, and being from the southeast, I invariably ended up extending the Midlands patch, and sometimes I'd cover stories in the southeast as well, because I'd know people and have kind of, contacts and be hearing things around there as well. But anything to do with crime or tragedy in particular, inquests were dark, and things would happen.
Were you drawn to that?
It's your job.
Yeah.
It is your job, and if the hardest stories probably people murdered abroad, and talking to the families about repatriation and things like that. Some of it will stay with you afterwards. But very good experience in how to read people and how to be with people. And the main thing is, just as much as you can, not to just... A lot of journalists are so focused on the story.
Okay. And
they don't think about the longevity of a career in journalism. So they could leave destruction behind. Now, it's not most journalists. A lot of journalists take a lot of care, but sometimes they're so focused on the story that they don't handle the people maybe with enough sensitivity and care. And it's important, I think it stays with people afterwards if you treat them well and look after them as much as you can.
And what's intriguing to me is that you've spoken to that person, right? And they're telling you very personal stuff, and they've trusted you. But not only that, now you've got to put pen to paper here now. So words are very, very important of how that story is portrayed.
Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, I might read a piece, but I might come away with a different opinion from it, and another person might read that piece. So are you kind of thinking, right, geez, I've got to put my best ability here onto this piece of paper here and to write this?
That's why facts are really important as well. Opinion pieces are much harder to write, and colour pieces, because there are different interpretations, and you might write something a certain way and mean it a certain way, and somebody else might take something, as you say, completely different meaning from it. And you have to have a backbone as well. You have to be able to stand over what you do, because people will come for you, and they have come for me.
Okay.
But once you have facts to back up what you're saying, and that you don't have an agenda, that you're never out. Your only agenda is to reveal the story to the public, that there's information that needs to be in the public domain, and that you can say, and you can back up every point with proof of what you're saying. This is what happened. This is when it happened. You can give people's perspectives by quoting them and all of that, but you need to be very fair. You need to be balanced. And you also need to kind of have a think beforehand. Is there anything missing from this story? Is there anyone I haven't asked that would like to be asked?
Another angle maybe?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's another twist here or something.
And again, give people the benefit of the doubt. Even, let's not gloss over it. We all, by the place where we were born, by the way we were reared, we all have biases. We have them. By the fact that I'm female, you're male, we have different kind of experiences, different internal biases. So just to look out for that, keep an open mind. You might be wrong about something, so go back over it and check. And never go to bed if you have that niggly feeling about your story. I'd go back at the story again. If there's something not quite, if something unsettling about it, or you think, and that's why newspapers are very stressful, because once the paper goes to bed, that's a phrase we use.
Okay, so when
it's
it
very
starts
final.
going to the
It's very final.
Cut, whatever, yeah.
And I know clarifications and all of that, but it could, if you're wrong, it can be very damaging for somebody. And libel and defamation laws in Ireland are very strict. Okay. So there's big repercussions if you make a mistake. So you want to make sure you're right.
And when you say people come to you or whatever, but because you've stated the facts, it's probably just an easy answer. I'm only telling the facts that I know. Like, you're not making this stuff up. So the journalist has to be very careful. But this moves then into your day job now of your new company, which Eimear.ie. So you have to, when you're dealing with your clients and local authorities or whatever, you're just stating the facts, really, of what's happening here.
It's funny, people take on comms people and they spend, PR is not cheap, it's expensive. So they take on a communications lead and they have big strategic meetings and they do all that stuff. And at the end of the day, sometimes I go in and I might just say to them, listen, lads, the only policy we have here is you tell the truth.
It's very simple, isn't it?
That's it. But yet, in an organisation, they can be looking at it every which way. But that's what it boils down to. Because you can't get caught out. If something has gone wrong, the truth is the only thing. Because eventually, and you've seen it there's so many examples of it in the media. You know, the drip feed. We have another revelation tomorrow. You know, the Independent will get 7 days out of this story, front page every day, because there's another piece coming and another piece. Isn't it much? I think it's much better and more refreshing. Now, sometimes it can be damning. The truth can have massive consequences. But if there's a way of coming out slowly with your hands in the air and saying, this is what happened and this is what we're doing to put it right.
So, like, I mean, I won't mention any recent stories, but sometimes when you're looking at television and or radio and you're kind of going, oh, come on, just spit it out. We know that you're either bluffing or you're not really telling the truth. Like, are you there behind, I don't know, whether you're there in your day job, oh my God, you could have handled that a lot better.
Oh yeah, I spend my life screaming at the television. Nobody likes watching television with me in my house, especially on those current stairs shows.
You could have asked that question a lot better now, so you could have, yes.
No, I'd be shouting at the TV regularly and the radio, but it's difficult too for people. It depends on the circumstances because the public get very frustrated with what we'll call the mainstream media now. And I understand it. And it's because the playing field is not level. People can go on the podcasts, can go on social media, have loads of leeway. You don't have maybe full free reign now, but you have a certain amount of leeway that you do not have on the RT News or on the mainstream maybe outlets in the newspapers and that. And that's because they are heavily regulated. So there's certain things that you can't address maybe or that you can't get into for very boring reasons that I could go into. But, you know, codes... again, defamation is a huge thing, so you have to be careful. So sometimes you're thinking on your feet, or somebody is, say, a spokesperson for an organisation, for instance, on Garda Síochána, a difficult job because maybe some case is pending and you are speaking to the media with one hand, maybe two hands nearly tied behind your back. Sorry about the pun.
Yeah, but, and like, so you, a part of Eimear.ie, you train, you know, civil servants, or you train businesses for high pressure interviews, or they have to do a piece on TV, or they're putting something out on a paper or whatever, or a PR exercise. Like, is there a technique that in the world that a nervous small business owner could use before stepping into a studio like this one? Yeah. Do you know?
Definitely. I should have done it. I'm terrible at taking my own sauce, but it does really help when you prepare properly for your interview or whatever you're doing by having 3 key points. What are the 3 things I'd like to get from this today? What are the 3 key messages I want to get across? So I write those down and they're just for me so that they're in my mind, or say for whoever's doing the interview, so that you don't walk away disappointed, because sometimes the time is gone, it flies by, you haven't got to say the things you really wanted to say. So whatever happens, you're trying to get them in, but you're not forcing them on people, because sometimes people go in and they're on this mission and they want to get all that out and it's just a big plug, or it doesn't feel nice. So consider how you say those messages. Do you have a little story that would back up what you're saying? Do you have a way to make that interesting so that it has some kind of emotional resonance, that it's relatable, all of that?
Okay, so if I'm rocking up now this morning to Virgin Media, and I have 3 things in my head, and I come across you and you go to me, Paddy, what's your response on such a thing? and you're kind of going, oh my God.
I'd say, I have never considered that before. And imagine if you were honest and without, you don't want to look like a bunny in headlights, so you have to watch your face as well. But just to say, to be perfectly honest with you, I couldn't answer that today. And
what about it?
What about it? Whereas if you try to answer it and you get into a situation and then you're being asked follow-up questions and you're really in a cul-de-sac, then you'll regret that you didn't come out clean and say, look, I really don't know the answer to that.
But you, as the person that's being interviewed, you can actually kind of spin to guide the interviewee or interviewer to back to the point.
So there's a bridging technique. So where I said I'd tell the truth, and I'd say I really can't get into that with you today for whatever reason you can outline. But you can say, I can tell you though that my quantity surveying business is top notch. Yeah. So, you can bring it back to something else. So there are lines you can kind of get used to these, and you hear them a lot when you start listening to the very accomplished political speakers, that they will say, yes, I hear exactly what you're saying. However, I'll point you to and it is a technique.
You must be training all these politicians, are you, the way you're talking there?
No.
And that leads me on to this. So what's the difference between someone who's media trained and someone who just naturally does it so well in interviews? Like, can you actually teach it, or do some people just have it?
Some people do just have it.
Right.
Yeah, no, you can see some people are fantastic at speaking plainly and speaking English. And it's rare enough. So if you get into, say, the tech sector or anything technical, say Irish Water at the moment now, we're going to hear lots of interviews relating to the shortage because we're in the middle of the hot spell and the hosepipe ban's going to kick in, and we'll be hearing from all the experts. When you get very, very technical, you lose people. So it's just trying to simplify the message, and that doesn't mean dumbing it down. It just means taking your time to respect your audience by telling them something they'll remember. So they won't remember the big fancy words, the jargon, whereas if we break it down to don't fill the paddling pool because we're in a hot spell and we're going to run out of water, that's something I might remember. Paddling pool warning or whatever. So can we break it down?
Okay. So that the wording is so important, but
and it's the imagery you're putting in their heads, because it's not about how do I sound? Do I sound nice and polished? And yeah, that's grand, but look, the outcome is actually more important. So again, with your key messages, what do I want to get from this? The outcome is more important than maybe in your own mind you looking nice and sounding well.
But say listen to radio or to TV and you have people on interviews or whatever, and they start to use very complex words or very high words, and you're kind of going, oh my God, can this person just talk naturally? Do you ever recommend to people just use your common language that you use?
All the time, especially in local authorities as well, say, and HSC and all those various bodies. There's an internal language that everybody internally understands. So the names for the different housing schemes, for instance, the Cree Conaha, you'd be hearing about this, Housing First, all these different schemes that say politicians will throw the names of them out there and councillors and people working in the local authority. But I always think, after you throw the name out there, shouldn't you explain what it is? Because we forget. Now, I know there's things like vacant home schemes, and certainly sometimes the clue is in the title of some of them, but it's great if you can explain what you mean.
So what you're doing is you're just simplifying it.
You're just respecting the people tuned in. Don't make any assumptions. And it doesn't mean that people are, that we're not smart, the people listening in, that we don't. Sure, how would we know the ins and outs of all this scheme? Everybody who's working in it knows. Don't assume the outsiders know. There's so much we won't know, and it's an opportunity to tell us about it. So why wouldn't we explain it? So definitely taking your time to prep. It's all in the prep and walking through. And it could just mean while you're driving the car in the morning that you're saying it out loud in your head. that you're rehearsing your founder story or your brand story or whatever it is, that it can be really helpful. If you can distill the message, then everybody around you will be able to grasp it.
And you talk about prep there. So you did a number of years in KCLR. You were the voice of the morning radio for many a year, 10 plus.
It wasn't 10, but you added years to me there. But I produced before I ended up presenting. But definitely, I don't know how many years full time, but I was certainly involved in presenting for around 7 or 8 years. And
you were at the 10 o'clock show, was it?
10 to 12.
Because I always remember my mother and father going, was the deaths at 10 o'clock, I think, in the morning?
Yes.
I go, your one is
highest ratings. Always.
It's a real Irish thing, isn't it?
Such an Irish thing. Yeah, the grandparents used to always listen to the deaths on KCLR as well. That's a great way to make sure that you're alive in the mornings.
And then you get the, I may go to that funeral. There's going to be a whole of a session there now tonight, or there's going to be a great bit of crack at that funeral, But anyway, so in radio, and I've had the pleasure of being interviewed by yourself down there, but I'm looking at this going, holy God, she's moving from me to the next person with different kind of stories or different kind of, and then you've got all these buttons in front of you. Oh my God,
well,
preparation.
First of all, the buttons, you only need to know how about 7 of them work.
Oh, what, about 200?
Exactly. So people overthink it.
Right.
Mic on and fader up. And make sure that fader comes back down and the mic is off when you're having the chat before.
When the real story comes.
That's it. That's it, when the person gets up to leave. There's only a few things. So engineers don't want us to know this. But again, go back to me loving the control. I had to figure all that out early on because I like to know how things work and to be able to do it myself. So that if something goes wrong, I know, I have full control. But in local radio anyway, most people drive their own shows.
Okay.
And it's a great learning environment for young people as well, because you get to do everything. Whereas if you went straight into national media, particularly into RTE or BBC or a state broadcaster, you're siloed. So
Right.
there's sound engineers, there's broadcast assistants, whereas in local radio, some people may not like this, but this is a part of the job I loved. You're very hands-on. You will produce, you'll present, you could be reading the news, you could be opening the front door. It's all in a day's work, but it's all great experience.
But that's where, when a local radio station, it's the local people within that area is hearing that, and they're starting to trust you on that station because they're listening to hear how you guide that conversation apart. So when that person rocks in, whether they're media trained or not media trained, you've got to treat that person with the same level of respect, and you're trying to draw out that, aren't you?
Yeah, you're trying to get the information from them. And I feel sometimes it's a little bit like being a translator,
Right.
being a radio presenter, especially in current affairs, because you'll read the paper and you'll listen to people. Some of the people we talked about, sometimes the messages are quite complex, and you'll come on air and you'll try and explain it to everybody.
Yeah, and when you're explaining that and you've got a nervous person across from you, are you kind of, look, relax. I'm only asking.
Depends, Paddy.
Yeah.
Depends on the person.
And would
And
you,
it
would you
depends.
see that nervousness in?
You would.
You
You
would,
would.
yeah.
Now, I'm being bold saying it
I know,
depends,
but
but part of a radio show is information, entertainment. There's so many different aspects to it. But sometimes if it's somebody who has a big responsibility and a big pay packet, maybe, they should be accountable, we'd say, for something, you obviously treat them very differently to somebody who's coming in to share something because they've been through like a human story, like somebody who maybe is sharing a very important message and you can see it's difficult for them. So you might try and sit down with them beforehand, talk to them beforehand. A lot of the time though, people are amazed by how rapidly these things turn around in radio, how there's so many guests and somebody comes in, it's like a conveyor belt. It's a deeply personal story, or it could be a tetchy discussion with a politician, and then they're out the gap and you're on to the next one. And your brain has to switch between things.
And is there ever a time where you've gone, they're in now the studio now, I'm going to hit them hard here?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love it.
And everything comes into it, God help some people, depending on the date of the month.
And
You
would
try
you ever
to be
get the comment
professional
after
always.
it? Would you ever get the comment where someone might go, "Jeez, Eimear, you faker you.
Oh, I did. Yeah, plenty of it. But in general, I find, especially in a local community, people are decent.
Yes.
Do you know? And they know you have a job to do. And I try to give them a heads up in a fair way. So you don't give your questions. You'd never give your questions. You'd never script the questions even. But you might give people an indication so that they can properly prepare for what they're walking into. I would call it a planned ambush at times, where I'd say, listen now, this is not good. You know,
but like that
and
person,
they'd understand you have
so
a job
say, for
to
instance,
do.
something happened to that person, or something in their business or local authority happened a week ago or two ago. Like,
Are we going back to the Kilkenny Road?
you know, look, I'm sorry, no, but we're going to have to bring this up because you are, you know, so you are an important person in this story. So you have to talk about it. And then you've got to give them the opportunity to say X, Y, and Z and the whole lot. But you've also got to give other people their chance with opinions. And I think that's, as a democracy here in Ireland, I think it's very important that we're able to give our opinions.
Oh, it's great. I think it's brilliant that we can do this. It's a massive luxury when you think that we can go on a local radio show or a podcast or whatever in Ireland and have a discussion about something, disagree with each other, that we can get up. And I seen it when I was producing The Tonight Show as well on Virgin Media, you know, heated discussions, but that people can get up afterwards and shake hands and walk out the door, chat on the way out to the car, in the car park, that you'd see them afterwards. But they could have been really, you know, into it in the live, in the moment, in the studio. But we can understand that, because especially if you have different political beliefs maybe to somebody else, but there's usually an underlying respect there that I'd say, okay, I respect, Paddy, that you're a Man United fan, but I don't agree with it.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I'm not a Man United fan.
I know you're an ABU, I'm tormenting you now.
But isn't that so important that you can get up off that table, off that chair, and go to that person? I respect your opinion. It's not my opinion, but I respect it. That's your thoughts. These are my thoughts. And hopefully come to some sort of a common ground. Whether there's bits there that I like what you say, or whether there's bits there that you might, or that what I say that you like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important just that we don't, as well, who wants to have an echo chamber where we all agree? We have to be coming from different angles and different perspectives, and that's really, really healthy.
So you were on our airways for nearly a decade in Carlow, Kilkenny, and next minute, Carlow, Kilkenny people got the blow. I'm leaving. What made you leave?
I think the media industry has changed a lot, and I was thinking, okay, and I definitely am an overthinker, and I love the bigger picture. It would have been much easier at times if I just focus on stories, because I also love being a journalist and storytelling. But I do think about the industry, where the industry is going, what's coming next. Are we innovating quick enough? Are we agile? All those things. And all the frustrations I had were about the industry. They weren't about my employer. It was a great place to work, fantastic CEO at the helm, and a really good organisation. And I worked for John Purcell twice, so I was a boomerang. I came back, remember, to KCLR.
Yeah.
So that'll tell you the kind of place it is. It's a good place, and with lots of young people as well, and opportunities for people. But the industry had me vexed because, and it's very challenged, the business model. So revenue in general, right across the board with media, the advertising rates way down, and that's because of competition from Meta, and that's a normal thing, I suppose, that a disruptor came in, but it came in and changes happened really rapidly. And I could see when I was working in the Irish Independent that even at that stage that newspapers were very, very slow to innovate with the internet, we'd say, and with the onset of digital, they were slow to go from broadsheet to tabloid when people were screaming out for an easier paper to read. That's how old I am. Like, I kind of remember that transition time, and I remember the frustrations that, okay, they're not going to charge for digital, so how are they going to make money from this? And I was worrying about that in my 20s. Right. So then here I am, say, back in my late 30s, I'm about to turn 40, I'm in KCLR, and I started this had always been on my radar about the rate and the changes and the industry and the challenges. And then I start to think, I can actually change. Now, I can't change the industry, go back to what you can control, but I am one person. Maybe I could position myself to be very helpful within this industry while it's in flux.
Okay.
And maybe there are opportunities and scope within that with everything I know about the media, because I've spent my life in there since I was a teenager, and it's all traditional media background. I've done the newspapers, I've done radio, I've done television. So I have a deep understanding of how all this works. So maybe I can position myself in a certain way that I can keep doing some good work that drives me, but that I can have a good life and that I can make a business out of this that will subsidise that passion I have for media. Because if I stay here, it's a dead end. I'm not going to have a pension. I'm not going to have a good future. So it was for practical reasons, really, for those things that I'm talking about with business. I didn't know what was next, how I'd figure it out. I knew I didn't want to just go into a comms or a PR job. I would find that I can completely understand why people do, but for me, I would find it somewhat soul destroying, being honest with you.
Yeah, but you have the flexibility now.
That's it. So I thought, I've forgotten about education. I'm a nerd. I absolutely love education. So I did a springboard course. I applied there. Adults can go back at any stage. I applied for a postgraduate. There was this course coming to Kilkenny, being available through Trinity's Business Incubation Centre. It was called Tangent at the time. I think it's called Portal now. But TCD came to the Design and Crafts Council, and they were on the radio doing an interview about this new course. And I'll be honest, I looked down, I thought, Jesus, what's this? Like, big long name, creative and cultural entrepreneurship. I thought, this is very fancy.
Beautiful.
This is way above my pay grade.
That's it, sign me up.
But it was while they were speaking that I realised, these are all the things I love. What if you could look at the things that drive you as an artist or as a writer or whatever it is. And if you could create a business around that to support that maybe there are other things you can sell that would help that. So it started to really speak to me. So I just thought, you know what? It's in the evenings. I signed up for it. So it was a good bit of work. It was only a part-time course, so I was still working away while I was doing it. But everything they advised and told me to do, and every piece of information I got from it, I actually did it.
Okay.
So I thought, instead of doing a hypothetical business plan or a hypothetical investigation into where my client is, while I was interviewing potential clients, they actually signed me up. So by the time I left KCLR, I had a structure. I was already had a very small side hustle where I do a bit of MC and, I do various little events and things, and maybe some national media. I dabble in other little things in the Irish language and stuff. But this was a structured thing. So something I had not considered was training. So they said to me, right, so you're a journalist. That's the first thing. You can do some broadcasting or writing. They knew I wanted to do a book. And I was in the middle of researching the book and investigating. So I needed to subsidise that with jobs. So PR would be the thing, like taking on some clients that would help that. And then they said, what about another arm? Because sometimes the PR work, certain times of the year, goes quiet.
Goes quite right. Okay.
Like Christmas, early January. You're not as busy then.
Yes.
Whereas it's really busy this time of year, really busy in September. So you need something else. So they said, look at all the insights you have with media. Would you not train people? And I thought, God, to be honest with you, Paddy, I hadn't really considered the training aspect of it. So now that's a chunk of my business as well.
Okay.
Training, bespoke comms workshops, going into teams and working with their team and seeing maybe what they need.
Okay.
And devising something for them.
So in Eimear.ie, what percentage roughly are you training out of your total business?
A third.
A third?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a tripod, basically. I have three arms to the business.
So give us
journalism, PR and training.
Wow. Okay.
That's it.
So
now, sometimes the figures change, obviously, depending on the time of year. So last year, maybe journalism took up a bit more, but this year it might be PR will take up more.
Okay.
So it depends.
But you've different
I'm flexible.
angles. You're not putting your eggs in one basket,
No.
as they say, which can be detrimental to a business. You've got to keep looking at different angles. Let me go back to when the thoughts came to your head, because someone here might be listening that are at that stage, they're in a job and they're probably thinking, oh my God, I have this idea and I have it down on paper. Will I go for it? Do you know?
It depends on the job you have.
Yeah.
So the job I had, now I was very lucky that it brought a lot of opportunities in terms of profile, connections, networking. I would have met you and lots of people in the chamber and lots of other networks through that job. So it opened many doors for me. But say for others, it might be harder to get clients because they might be starting from scratch. Marketing can be overwhelming, like PR, all of that. So that's difficult. So I don't take that for granted that I had a big head start with that. But the main thing I had to focus on was all I was leaving really behind me. If you leave the profile to one side, in terms of, we'd say, if we're looking ruthlessly and thinking and talking like a business, I was only leaving a wage behind. I wasn't leaving anything else, a wage. Yeah. So I thought, surely to God, if I replace that, and if I replace that in a way that's sustainable, media is never certain. You could be gone in a few months anyway. In most jobs like that, it can be very uncertain. So what if I knew I could replace my wages, say, for 6 months? So that's what I did. I went and I signed up retained clients, and I could see the path, and I could see the way, and I could see I'd be paid in a sustainable way. I'd replace my wages, and that I kind of didn't have huge expectations at the start other than that. I did map out what I wanted to do, and obviously I have ambitions for how much I wanted to grow. But I put a cap on it too because of the book. So I was so invested in the first couple of years in the business in getting that project over the line that I thought Eimear.ie was to subsidise really my journalism for the initial period. Not a sound business plan, I know, but it worked out for me. But now I feel like I'm kind of at the bottom of the hill now. Again, I'm looking up and I'm thinking, am I going to grow or what am I going to do?
But business it's not linear.
Yeah.
You know, business has its ups and downs. It has its good days, it has its bad days, and it can be a lonely place. Did you ever feel when you started, you've got out of KCLR now, you had a wage, and next minute, it's just me. And have you ever felt like, oh my God, what have I done here? Or actually, do you know what it is? Nowadays, you could probably say, I'm unemployable. I'm just going to do it for myself now.
In the early days, probably a few times, I was like, oh, this is very strange. Nearly looking over your shoulder, because in media, you don't get time for a lunch break. Now, that's no lie. For years, it's not that it's that you have this disposition yourself, that your probably default position is checking stuff, checking your phone, checking in case something happens. You know, if you're reading a news bulletin on the hour for any news journalists, you don't get much time in between bulletins to get anything to switch off at all. So I couldn't believe how much time initially was in the day. Okay. So I'd look over my shoulder. If I got all my work done in 4 hours, I'd want to force myself to go find something else and do something else instead of, it's okay to give yourself, because maybe in that 4 hours I get as much done as somebody maybe in 7 or 8 hours, that maybe it was okay not to give myself a hard time. So I'd say I'm a tough boss. But at the start, definitely a bit unsettling, a bit weird, a bit like almost, you know, when you're on holidays and you hide the phone, you put it in the safe and go for a walk, but you feel like someone's cut your arm off because you're a little bit paranoid, like about what if something happens, so that's the news junkie in me, that I find it hard to relax into it. But less of that now. I don't really have that now. Also involve yourself in networks. So also the fact that I'm a tenant in the office space with the local enterprise office at the hub in Hackettstown. So you have a structure, you see people. So the office is not as busy, obviously, as a newsroom would be. But remember, I'm in and out of other people's organisations. So I love going into the office in Hackettstown, but it's actually a rare day now because I'm here, there and everywhere. So it's just somewhere I come back to when I need to do paperwork or I need to focus or get into the zone on something. But in general, I'm able to dip in and out of organisations and have loads of contact with people. Doing the book was more lonely. That was more in a room.
By yourself?
Yeah.
And you've mentioned a couple of times about connections and networking, and you've mentioned Carlow Chamber and you've mentioned Carlow Leo. How important were those events for yourself? Because whenever I'm at an event, I see yourself, but I also see a lot of other Carlow businesses, and it's like this little eco place, isn't it? We all meet up and we're all going, and you just don't know who you're talking to, do you? Sometimes, like if you introduce yourself, it's absolutely amazing. What do you do yourself? I do this, and next minute you go, hold on here, I could use a bit of that.
Like there's a whole world of people out there and businesses in Carlow that are so impressive, from small businesses providing services globally to larger companies in manufacturing, all of that, or just serving even the local community. So it is really important that if you are setting up a business, or say you're that nervous person. So at the start, the challenges I had, and number one for me, education. So I could see the path, and that I knew, and more on the financial side of it, to be honest with you, Paddy, because that's where my weakness would be with figures, to figure out how much do I need to make to keep this show on the road? What do I need to look at? You know, talk to an accountant, all those kind of boring things, I might say, but they're very, very important. But the next thing was the local enterprise office and all the supports that are there. Like, we are very lucky, and the chamber, the networks that are there, not to be afraid to go to the events. Some people tell me now, luckily I'm not shy. I'll head in anywhere, I'll have the cup of tea, the coffee, the chat, like yourself. I'll just talk to anybody.
Oh, here he comes.
Here we go. But I love hearing, say, the stories and chatting to people. And there's great businesses. You know, Pat Bramley, you might meet Pat and Dipna. You might meet Gary Evans. You'd meet Nicola.
Just on that, Eimear, if I'm going to an event or a networking event and it's my first one and you're nervous, right? And you walk into that room and you know absolutely nobody, and imposter syndrome comes, what am I doing here? Is there any little advice that you'd give someone when they hit those meetings or those? What would you do?
I'd say always my advice is fairly similar all the time with anything, with an interview or with a situation like that. Do a little bit of research before you go. Figure out who might be there. Say, if I knew, okay, chances are this is being hosted in, for instance, Carroll Estimating, then I'd Google you. I'd find out a little bit about your business. And then, because it's awkward and you're standing there on your own, I might go up to you and I'd know what you look like from the website. So now you're getting the proper journalism techniques here.
So this is
we
proper
do a bit
stalking,
of
yes?
A bit of a dive, we call it, a dive, to figure out the who's who. I'd figure out maybe who's the CEO of the chamber, Nicola Dorn, lovely woman. I'd Google maybe and see who's going to be at this. And once I established that I knew from the pics on the website a couple of people's names, I'd go up and I'd introduce myself to them. I'd say, hi Nicola, I'm Eimear from Eimear.ie. I have a media communications PR business. And I tell people about what I do. So it's very cliched almost, but get your little elevator pitch ready. Rehearse your story about yourself so you're comfortable with it, and practice it in that room, talking to people. And you'll find a really supportive environment if you're honest with them as well. Tell them you're nervous.
Isn't that one thing when you do introduce yourself, that people actually, oh, pleased to meet you, I've heard of you.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen you.
Delighted if you introduce yourself. It's really nice. If someone comes up to me and says who they are and what they do, sure, that's great. The person is making a real effort. I don't know anyone that gets knocked back from an interaction like that. In Carlow, businesses are really trying to pull each other up. We're trying to support each other.
Eimear, I'm just going to hold you there now for a second, because we have to hear from our wonderful sponsors of Carlow Connects. So we'll just hit the pause button and we'll be back in a second. This season of Carlow Connects is brought to you by 3 brilliant local Carlow businesses. Hickson Centra, Potato Market Carlow. Live every day at Hickson Centra with a fresh deli, a cosy seated area, free Wi-Fi, and don't forget to check out their brand new store on the Burn Road. Your local spot for great food and great service. Woods Contract Cleaners and Property Maintenance. Woods provides everything from office and window cleaning to industrial and commercial contract cleaning. And now they offer professional solar panel cleaning too. Find out more at woodscontractcleaners.ie. Green Pro Energy Consultants. Based here in Carlow, Green Pro Energy deliver BR certificates, air tightness testing, and ventilation validation with fast professional service. Get in touch at info@greenproenergy.ie, your local energy assessment experts. Right, folks, we're back again. Listen, Big shout out to our sponsors there. 3 amazing companies here in Carlow, and always love to hear Carlow businesses doing really, really well. Right, so Eimear, before we wrap up, I have to do this. This is one of my favourite parts of the show. It's called Before They Were Bosses. So you're unemployable now, yeah?
Yeah.
Because so everyone's sitting across from me now, running a business, leading a team, making big decisions. They weren't always doing that. Somewhere along the way, there was a first job, a mad story, a moment where you thought, what am I doing here? Is there anything that you can come up with?
Okay, this is going way back. Transition year, Gael Colosh to Carlow.
Woohoo!
I was in a mini company with a few lads, Greg Costigan, if you're listening. And we'd say we parted company early days in this little mini company. Bit of a bust up. I was doing all the work. That's it. Complete breakdown. We remained friends, but I went down the sole trader route. And I did a bit of outsourcing. And I thought,
you did not, behind his back.
How things have not changed, because we'd say there was 4 or 5 of us in the first iteration of the mini company for the student enterprise, or the Carlow Young Entrepreneurs it was called at the time. But I ended up going sole trader and doing a bilingual business at the time in advertising signs. So go figure. I think I was 15 or 16 at the time. So nothing has really changed since then.
And just go on to that bilingual there, what you said there, because you're now doing a lot of work in Irish.
That's it. So back then it was no cat tabak, because the smoking ban had just come in.
Say that again?
No cat tabak. So the smoking ban had come in, so we needed the no smoking signs that Chalk Dolman and some of the local bars and restaurants would have bought from the company. And I used to go down to Jones's business, get signs laminated. I had a little colour printer at home, and then I'd sell them to the bars and restaurants, the bilingual signs. And so some restaurants, in fairness to Willie, the late Willie, he was a great supporter of the Irish language. So I think Chalk Dolman would have been one of the ones that got the menus done in Irish for me. And AIB, actually, I'd met somebody that was working in AIB, and I did business cards for them, because sometimes they found years ago, you'd need a massive order.
Yes.
And that would cost a lot. So my little mini company, I'd be able to do you 50, say. And I had a guillotine and I did them all by hand. So I made the business cards, signage, whatever, in Irish and in English.
There was a bit of an entrepreneur in you.
Bit of a hustler.
Actually, just while you're sitting there, and the cameras will pick this up, and we talk about local connections and networking and all that, you've got a nice top on you. That's from our local business here in Tullow, from Ballybar, Ciara.
That's it.
So, folks, if this was ever a case where businesses in our own county look after each other and mind each other, here's a prime example.
Well, Ciara and Coppina Farm are neighbours of ours, so they're just up the road and around the corner kind of thing. And great that you can, again, when we were talking about sometimes businesses need big, massive orders, Ciara does really good quality material in the shirts and in everything she does, but you can order a small amount of them as well. So for a small business like me, I could go in and get 3 or 4 shirts. And once she has your logo on file, it's there forevermore. And you can get the beanies, you can get the outdoor jackets, really wearable stuff for people that are working outside as well. Sometimes I have days where I'm filming outside, and some of it is really practical and washes really well.
Isn't it amazing that I think if you were to write down what you require today in your business, there's all companies around Carlow that can sort that out for you very, very quickly. And I think to be able to pick up the phone and go, geez, I'm under a bit of pressure, and you know what is, it's nearly done instantly. I just find that amazing with local businesses,
They're brilliant. I had to ring Ger recently in Touchpoint Media to get some bilingual signs printed.
Brilliant.
And as usual, I was no maid there, not Tabroner Ger, lastminute.com, but she was able to sort me out, and for a photo shoot I was doing in Dublin. So yeah, definitely. And also Paul Byrne, if I could give him a mention. He's a fantastic artist. He designed my logo for me. So anything that I can source locally, I always will. I never like to go too far.
Brilliant. Eimear, where can people find you or businesses if they want to work with you, or is there anything coming up that we should all know about?
The clue is in the name. The name of the business is Eimear.ie, and the reason for that is I've a very long surname, so you never have to worry about spelling Ní Bhraonáin. You can just log on to Eimear.ie. All my contact details are there, and my email even is eimear@eimear.ie. So just to make it nice and simple for people to find me. At the moment, I am working on a very exciting project for the 4 local authorities in Dublin. And you will be seeing lots of park benches around the country, and certainly they're in Dublin, but they'll be rolled out elsewhere by the OPW later this week, and they're called Binshi Cora, to encourage people to use their cúpla focal if they're passing by and they want to take a seat on the bench. But Dublin City Council has an excellent project to promote the Irish language called Gaeilge 365. So that's one of the programmes, one of the clients that I'm working with. But on an ongoing basis, I'm very committed as well to the homeless, and I mentioned that earlier in the chat we had. So I do a lot of work with homeless organisations, people that are tackling. I know it's a separate issue, the housing crisis, to homelessness. There's the ongoing issue of homelessness, but there also is a crisis as regards housing. So working with the housing agency as well around messaging and all of that. So they're just some of the clients on a day-to-day basis, but people might see me popping up on Ireland AM coming soon to do their newspaper review, which I do regularly.
And you were just lately on with Bobby Kerr there, I see.
Yeah, that was great. Sometimes the media, they do their out and abouts and their outside broadcasts and that, so it's nice when those opportunities come up.
We must get them down here, so we must, yes. And just to mention, the book is still on sale?
The book is on sale. Last year, in 7 weeks, it outsold every other book in Ireland. So it was the #1 selling book in Ireland in 2025. So I'm very grateful to everybody who bought The Dodger. Thanks a million for that. And I was delighted with how well the book did, and great reviews as well, because it's nerve-wracking, especially when it's such a tough story and an investigation like that for everybody involved.
When is the next book coming?
Not sure about that, Paddy. I have been asked about another book.
Oh, and who do you have to ask about that one?
I have been asked. My publisher has lots of ideas and plans.
Very good.
But I think the next story, I'm going to be patient and see what emerges. But certainly I'm open maybe to doing another one, just not straight away. I think I need to give Eimear.ie some TLC for the time being, get the cash flow moving again.
Get the cash flow moving
That's
again,
it.
Right. Now, before I leave, Shannon said to me, you're going to have to finish off in Irish. So I said, right, go on. Right,
Shannon?
Yeah, so I'm gonna read something out. I hope I get this right. So, go raibh maith agat, agus teach agus de chuid am a úsad an Shotlin.
Gur míle maith agat, Paddy.
Folks, that's it for today with Eimear. What a show. I could actually talk all day to you about different stuff and all this. So look, folks, if you're enjoying Carlow Connects, please share it, like it, send it to someone you know who's running a business, thinking about starting one, or just loves a good business story and where people have come from. Also, if you're a local business and you want to advertise in Carlow Connects, get in touch with us at ampifi.ie. We'd love to hear from you. A sincere thanks to Shannon, to Gabe, to Ash and to Darren, our production and content creator team behind the gig here. We'll be back soon again with another conversation, another story and another connection. I'm Paddy Carroll. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to Carlow Connects. Keep up to date with the podcast by following us on all social media.